why, as Tony Stark, they will hand over the Iron Man armor to the government. And they failed completely to do this right from the first speaker. And I pointed this out to you in my speech, right? I told you we need to look from the perspective of Tony Stark. Who he stands for as an individual and his moral values and moral beliefs. How he opposes anti-establishment. How he used to hold on to the uniqueness and the special nature of the Iron Man to become a hero to build himself. Something that no response coming from the other side, who only wanted to talk about larger joke or implications and all these things. And they said that it's wrong for us to use the comic book universe because somehow we know more about it, right? Or because that's not what we're talking about. That's like saying that because I know contextual knowledge about the geographical area we're talking about, therefore you can't use examples from the geographical area in context as arguments for a debate, right? That doesn't make sense. Because you know more, therefore we have better examples, we will have more compelling case for what the rest of the time. That's not something that's wrong or that's not for us to do, right? Having done that, let me then talk about the debate that they want to present, right? Even on their grounds, where we argue against them, we still take this debate. I have two main questions. First, who watches the Iron Man? Second, more war, right? First, who watches the Iron Man, right? And the argument here was that somehow democratic checks, right, are better than personal limitations. The governments are checked by the people, by the Senate, by the judiciary for some reason, and that's better when you use the Iron Man, right? Let's look at it Let's look at this, right? First of all, ignore the entire analysis, coming right from the beginning of my speech and continue on, the idea of the rhetoric of war, the logic of infallibility and the logic of invincibility that then permeates the national discourse. When you're talking about using the armed forces as a basis to prosecute, or using Iron Man as a basis for the military engagement, as a basis to prosecute war, they ignore entirely the characterization that I brought to you for how the United States government is fundamentally only interested in national security, something that is sometimes opposed to the interest of the world, as opposed to the interest of Ireland, right? Further explain to you how often national security and dialogue is hidden from the democratic discourse, and people don't necessarily have control over these particular things. Something they didn't respond to. The only argument here is that we elect individuals who are accountable to the people, right? But again, they didn't explain to us why necessarily these individuals or the people will make better decisions about the use of Iron Man, about where to deploy them, than Tony Stark would. Because we proved to you that even though we agree that Tony Stark is a personal limitation, but we explained to you about his motivations, why he created Iron Man in the first place, right? About his self-sacrifice, or the history of his track record. They wanted to say that you can't guarantee this, you can't enforce this. But we're talking about you can never guarantee anything. That applies to their model as well. You have to look at what is likely. You have to look at the characterizations and their basis for motivation and the basis behind their behaviors, right? And when we look at it, we think the United States government is not as trustworthy, cannot be trusted this weapon, compared to Tony Stark, who has both his intrinsic character to motivate himself, as well as the extrinsic motivations about like girls and people who will flock to him if he does well, and people will run away from him if he doesn't, right? Let's look again. Let's look at the possibility of abuse, right? What if there is abuse and how we check against these particular things, right? And we told you about how in this particular scenario, it is far easier to check on Tony Stark as a single individual, only one Iron Man, as opposed to the United States government possessing an army of Iron Mans. And the response to the third speaker was, oh, you can check it because you have engineers checking the machines, right? And that's not what the definition of checking is, right? Checking is about controlling, preventing the ability to abuse it. And the only argument that the Senate somehow is infallible, the judiciary is infallible. Really, the United States government elected George Bush 2 times. Don't think that's the kind of debate that we talk about in this instance, right? Last, the whole idea of war. And the only rebuttal, war analysis we brought to you. Oh, why the US then? Because it less human cost, because of the arms race they will create, because ultimately the rhetoric of the right means they will impel with creating more war, intervene in areas where only one intervene currently, like Yemen, like Pakistan, like Iran. Why ultimately the problem that the only response is that, oh, look, US is not a neo-colonial power, doesn't want to spread its race and invade all the countries. But that ignores the kind of nuance that we talk to you, right? It's not so much about invasion or being neo-colonialist. It's about them imposing a will on campaign to fight what they think are the promote their own national security interests, right? That kind of analysis we talk to you that's never really engaged by their side. So because we think, from Tony Stark's perspective, he should never do this to betray himself, because we think Tony Stark can watch the Iron Man better than the government can, because we think we prevent more war, very, very proud to oppose.